First order of business is Mazarenko Bog Bridge Eagle Scout Canada project.
So I'll just point out, this is a map of the Mazarenko Trail System, and the 2 stars on the map represent where the bog bridges will go. You can explain to them what you propose to do.
So, my name is Morgan Dyer. I'm from Troop 82 in North Andover. And my plan is to build a simple bridge over, my first plan is to build it over the stream crossing on the Scout Trail, which seems to be a good project for me. It seems a little bit difficult for me to try and do both crossings, though it might be a good contingency plan. So what I basically have is about a 30-foot long boardwalk sort of bridge, which will be mostly about 6 inches off the ground, and it'll cross the stream, which was about 7 feet long. And
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions, Sean?
Is anybody helping you with this project?
Yeah, it'll be me, my unit members will be helping me out with the building, and then I've been getting help with my family for the planning, and they'll help me with the building.
That's great. And where are you getting the supplies?
So right now, I've looked at one place so far. I've gone to Jackson Lumber in Lawrence, and they've been willing to give me a donation for wood, and I'll also be going to a few other places. And what I've had recommended is pressure-treated wood, if that'd be all right to put in for that.
And where are you going to be doing the cutting of the wood? Out there on the site?
The cutting would mostly be done on-site, so I know the specific measurements, I can move it to get the perfect measurement.
And who will be doing the cutting?
The cutting will be done by adults only.
Okay. Sounds like a great project. Good luck with it.
Yes, I'm generally in vehement support for projects like this. I do have a question about a sketch for the bridge itself. It looks like there's a 12-foot span across a stream area, and it looks like one of the sketches. I guess I'm confused because it looks like one of the sketches has the support sleepers outside the banks of the stream, but the other one looks like it has the sleepers inside the banks of the stream, and I'd like to know which one it is.
They'd be just outside the banks of the stream, because there's a little kind of valley almost, and the stream doesn't take up the entire length of it, so it'd be just outside the banks of the stream.
Okay, that was my main concern. Well, you'll need plenty of help getting your materials to that site.
Yeah. One question I had was, there is a parking lot on Great Pond Road there, but it's under construction currently. So would the best way to get the materials there be from the parking lot on Bradford Street?
So you can still park, I mean, as long as you're not doing it during the day, during construction hours. There's some pull-offs, like people who fish in that area, and just up closer, a little closer to Butcher Boy, there's a pull-off area. You should be able to park there on a weekend or after school or something like that, I would guess. Because if that's slightly shorter, it's certainly slightly drier to go that way.
Doug?
No questions.
Motion?
So this would need to be just a, because there is erosion and trail rutting in this area, we usually issue a sort of friendly enforcement order. It's the typical, since this is a largely not a permanent structure, I mean, they can be moved and they're fairly benign.
Sure. I move that we issue a friendly enforcement order to complete construction of the bog bridge as proposed.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. And if
Next
you-
one.
I'll write up something and give that to you, okay?
Next one is NACC, small project number 174.
So I don't think this got scanned in, so this is just for a fence. I think you have all the information in front of you. Heidi did review this wetland when they put in the septic system to determine that the septic system was more than 100 feet. So the fencing that you see is all within the 100-foot boundary. Not all, but portions of it are within the 100-foot, but definitely outside of the 20-foot, 25-foot no disturb zone.
I think she told me 65 feet.
Is the closest point.
Right.
So she recommends a small project H in approving as proposed with, did she say post-construction? Post-construction and wetland markers at the 25.
Any questions?
Nope.
Jack?
No, just checking the small project bylaw. Is there a limitation on the length of the fence or anything?
Nothing.
Doesn't look like it. I'd say it's more than 65 just by looking at the scale, so
The wetland line on the plan is approximate, so Heidi went out and actually measured.
Oh, okay. So that is accurate. Great. No other questions?
No questions.
Motion?
I move that we grant as subsection H of the small project checklist, NACC number 174.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
And I move that we allow the project to go forward as proposed with, you say post-IMPRI?
With just post-construction
With post-construction inspection
and markers at the 25.
and markers at the 25.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Next one is RDA for 561 Bradford Street, Friends of North Andover Trails.
So this is a section of the Mazarenko Trail that's sort of beyond Eagle Scout project scope. So what I just passed out is what the bridging looks like right now. And then this is what was done at Harold Parker. You can see sort of the type of project they want to do out there now. So this would be a Friends of North Andover Trails, and Steve Foster is here to present. That's the bridging now.
Okay, we're going to make it better. Stephen Foster here is a member of Friends of North Andover Trails, FONAT, as you call it. We're looking to put forth an RDA for building about 150 feet of boardwalk along the Locust Trail, which parallels Bradford Street, and also one footbridge over a stream. This is the Locust Trail that parallels Bradford Street, and the new bridge would be located in the same location as the former structure that was there that was wiped out in a high water event sometime in the past. And this is going to be done with all volunteer labor and donated materials by the Friends of North Andover Trails.
Yes. Any questions, Sean?
No.
Jack?
Yeah, Steve, how wide is the boardwalk going to be?
It's 2 or 3 plank wide, Jack.
The width of the walkway?
Yeah, the boardwalk.
I think
What-
they're planning to have,
It's got a cross-section, but it doesn't have the width.
Be similar to the trail that was built on the,
I think
I think it's the
are they
Osgood Trail
4
on
feet?
Stevens Estate.
I think they're 4 feet across.
Oh, you talking the sleepers, how far are they spaced apart, Jack? Or is
No, the width of the
walking
treads.
width.
You got 2 planks wide, so you're about 2 feet roughly in width.
What size are the planks?
Maybe like 2 by 12s or something of that
12
nature.
inch wide, okay, so about 24 inches.
Oh, so narrower than the one that's at,
The Osgood Trail is about 2 feet wide.
I'm thinking of Harold Parker, the big one they built out
okay.
at Harold
Yeah, I'm not
Parker. I think
familiar with
that one's about 4 feet wide, so you're thinking about 2 feet, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, this has also been on the wish list for quite a long time. This is an extremely good project. So the length is about 150 feet.
Correct.
Yep. And you've got a 16-foot wooden footbridge across a stream. So is that going to be about a 16-foot span?
Approximately, could be a little bit less, depending on where we set the posts.
Yeah, yeah. There's a rock in the middle of that stream too, isn't there? Are you
There is. No, we'll
going
bear on
wide
either
of
side,
that?
you know,
Yeah.
we'll span clear.
clear of that stream? Yeah. Now, the sketch attachment B has treated wood posts. Looks like they're dug into the ground. Is that going to be the bridge? That's for the bridge detail?
That's your abutment.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the boardwalk detail, on the photos had little precast concrete pads. Are you
Yeah, the
planning?
boardwalk would be 6x6 treated sleepers, about 4 feet on center.
Okay. So
And-
not according to that?
Yeah.
Okay, just sleepers. Okay. Is that, it gets a little soft in there, although it's pretty narrow. That might be underwater, that parts of the year.
All right, we'll have to gauge accordingly. It may jump up to an 8x8 number if
Yeah.
it gets spongy in there.
Yeah. Well, you're going to put in 6x6s, so I guess we'll see how that works. I would just caution you on that, because I know that, especially the section, I'm not sure what section that is, but the section leading up to the stream crossing, that gets
That's
pretty
the
soft.
actual stream. So the 150 feet is because that area gets pretty wide in spring.
Right.
But that's the actual channel.
My point is, between the parking area on Bradford Street and the stream, if you walk the Locust Trail that
Mhm.
way, a lot of it is parallel to Bradford Street.
Correct.
It gets pretty wet in that area, and hopefully your sleepers will be adequate to keep that above water.
Okay.
I can get one of these too. I don't think Steve's seen these. This is the one
What's that?
Yeah, yeah.
Doug, any questions?
No question.
Motion?
So this is a negative number 2 for work in resource area.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. All set, Steve.
Thank you.
Next one is 242-1661, 384 West Street.
Today, we just got comments from Lisa. So you have those in your packets. Sure, and we'll have it up there as well. Whichever, oops, that's the pump station, wrong one.
Good evening. On behalf of the town of North Andover, I'm Ray Santilli, the Assistant Town Manager. With me is John Sabasta from CSS Architects and Richard Cutts from Linden Engineering. Since this is real technical stuff, I'm just going to step aside at this point.
So I'm sorry, Richard Cutts and
John Sabasta and Richard
John
Cutts.
Sabasta. Thanks. I have it all. I just taken minutes.
She knows where to find it.
It's all yours.
So, okay. For the record, Richard Cutts from Linden Engineering of Woburn, Mass. Site engineer for this project. We do have a DEP file number. It was issued a few days ago, but it says as far as DEP, it's under review. I don't know if you need a copy.
No, I've got it.
You got it, okay. Basically, the filing which you have, very large one. The project itself is, believe it or not, it's only a third of a mile down the road from here at the DPW. And what is proposed is, the site itself is roughly 3.5 acres in size. Osgood Street is here. We're down here for the area. Basically, from a resource area point of view, we have the river, which is also known, it's called a brook on the plans, and that's only because the land surveyor called it a brook on his plans, so we wanted to show. So we have both river and brook. But we all know it's a river, and therefore it has a riverfront. And what's shown on the drawings is the 200-foot riverfront area is in the blue right here. And you'll notice it encompasses the entire site. So the whole site is in riverfront area. On top of that, the green that you see here is BVW. And this is BVW and bank associated with the river. And down on the inside, on the other side of this is Wayne Street, are inland wetlands, a small section right here, as well as a small section here. So the site is encumbered by your 25-foot no disturb zone, your 50-foot no build zone, and those are shown highlighted in orange here. So you can notice that the site, while it was narrow to begin with, is much more narrow as far as what could be designed and what could be built. The actual building of the addition for the DPW office building was actually changed. It was after an interdepartmental meeting, and it was changed to reflect and to allow it to be built outside the 50-foot no-build zone. So the shape of it was changed by Mr. Savasta and his team. The back, what was added in the rear is a salt shed to replace the existing salt shed that's there. It's basically an 80 by 100-foot structure, and it's also located right between the 50-foot here and 50. So all the structures, the new structures proposed, are all outside the 50-foot no-build. From a general point of view, we have plans. These are shown at 40 scale. It also should be noted that the base bid work of the project is basically the office building and the front area. That's going to be base bid. The alternate is the back salt shed and improvements to the backyard. So even though we're here permitting one project, it's really two parts at this point. Plans that are included with the set go from a 40 scale plan into 20 scales. These are construction ready plans. If you go through the plans and look, we have all demolition, we have layout, we go through detailed plans, everything you want to know on how to build this site is all in your package. What's really important in this is we have strived to reduce the impact along the riverfront itself. What's shown right here, this is the demolition plan, 2A, and again, it happens to be the A's at the front of the site, the B's at the back of the site. Just go that way. What you can see here is we're actually removing pavement. All the existing pavement that's in front of that building gets removed, and we put back a new parking lot in the front. Which is a smaller area. It's pulled away from the riverfront. We take out a lot of the existing pavement that's there. We have the building, we provide parking that meets the criteria of the planning board. We provide an ADA access. We provide a parking lot for, a parking space for ADA. This parking lot is curbed. It's curbed and contained, and all the drainage is designed all the drainage is designed to go out through, there's an existing head wall right here with a 48-inch culvert that comes across the site. Our plan is to core the wing wall of the head wall. Core through that as far as the discharge location, so we're not disturbing any bank. Put a small amount of riprap on the bottom. We've demonstrated calculations for runoff velocities going through for a 100-year storm. But we take all of the roof drainage through the system out there, as well as the parking lot through deep sump catch basins, and then through the storm scepter systems. Storm scepter is proposed right here. The actual roof will go through the storm scepter as well. This storm scepter we're proposing is a storm scepter 900, which is basically the smaller one that the state allows. They don't like the 450Is typically, so the 900 has the capacity to take both the parking lot and the roof from the building and not overload it. What we found out, if you're out here when it's raining, there's a little bit of a puddle that occurs and then a sheet flows into here. Well, this happens to be a low point in Osgood Street. So what we are proposing is a double catch basin at the edge of this curbing, and that'll be connected to the existing drain system. So where right now Osgood Street has no drainage, it will have drainage, again, through the deep sump catch basin in this area. Again, parking lot is all curbed. All the utilities, we're proposing a water main to come down. The existing service to the building, the existing building remains. Is located right in here. We're going to run an 8-inch water main down through here and tie into that. So essentially, effectively looping the city with the town services from a water point of view. Off of that, we'll put a fire hydrant for the new building so that there'll be fire protection system of the new building, and that'll provide a Siamese connection with a close proximity, which is what your fire department wants relative to if they ever have to use it to supply it. Single feeds in for water, for fire protection here. So the only work that's basically going to be down in the Wayne Street area is just putting in that sewer, the water main. Put in the water main, cut and cap, close it up basically. Previous to this, we have shown all erosion controls, typical use Filtrex silt socks, and along the river we proposed that using a silt fence as well with it. So in other words, that's the priority. Obviously, we want to make sure nothing is heading that direction. We have grading plans as well. Again, I'm just focusing at this point towards the front. The sewer that diagonally went through the site, I understand that's been approved to be relocated. So what is shown on these plans, just for information, is where that will be relocated before these are built. Obviously, because it would be under the building otherwise. If we look at the rear of the site, again, I'm welcome to stop and answer any questions. The back of the site, what it is you have an existing salt shed that's out there now. It's pretty deplorable shape. Structurally, I didn't want to go too close to it. And certainly this would be a way of taking care of that, plus containing the salt under a solid cover, new type structure. One of the things we've tried to do is balance the site. Again, we have the front of the site. We essentially have the same impervious area at that front of the site. That's the roof, the parking. The only thing we have additional is a little bit of emergency egress sidewalk to Wayne Street. There was no way we could change that. That had to be there from a life safety point of view. As far as the back of the site, there's a ramp that goes up, and there's a contained area right here, which is elevated up. Must have been a loading area used at one time. It kind of hasn't been used, but that particular area is gravel covered. In other words, there's no pavement on that area. So what we did is we took the impervious here, we identified the watershed, what heads across Wayne Street and what heads to the river, and tried to balance it so that we could control the rate of runoff as well as the volume of runoff, which is consistent with your town bylaw, your regulations that you would like to do or have us do. As far as the back of the site, what we're proposing on the back is, again, is a break line here, and essentially all this water will still go to the wetland. The issue here is this wetland is about 1.5 feet lower than the pavement. So there's no way you can put any drainage system here and still feed the wetland. We were concerned that if you don't have water going that way, that wetland could dry up. And that's something you don't, obviously. You want to keep everything in balance. So from the middle of the building, that direction, the sheet flows off. No catch basins, it's just country drainage. It goes through a section right here and then into the wetland, just like it does now. As far as this direction, we regraded the area. We actually go through a waffle, and we're proposing new pavement, redoing it, taking away existing pavement away from the river. Again, we're always trying to improve what's happening along the riverbank. This would be moved and pull that away. And then here would be catch basins with another storm scepter and a discharge pipe out next to the pipe that's already there. Currently, there are catch basins right here, here, and they connect across the site with a 36-inch pipe. We are not touching that pipe. We're leaving that alone. Part of the reason it's fairly flat. So it's easier to come to the site and discharge right to the edge of it. So our disturbance of bank and such is right at that location. It's a temporary one to just put riprap, basically, in that location.
Can you tie into that pipe? Because you're not allowed any new discharges into resource area.
By who?
DEP's regulations, and Lisa cites that in her letter, not because it's not fully treated, it's somewhat treated, but it also would be because of scour and bank issues. It wouldn't be preferable. It's not, I wouldn't.
Well, if you look at the calculations we produced, the rate of runoff going off there is, you could actually have grass there. I wouldn't even have to put riprap with the velocity that's leaving. One of the things we do is we have large pipes that are very flat. So when the water comes out, it basically just falls away.
I'm just asking, is it
Okay.
possible to tie into the existing pipe or no?
We could tie into it right at the very end, yes. I would not tie anywhere else. Just so you know,
Right.
the pipe has a 1-inch fall across it.
Right, I'm just saying if it's that little bit of flow, it wouldn't make any difference, and then you'd technically lose the new discharge, which is one of the things Lisa
Okay.
cites in her letter today.
Right, and we did get this letter. And
Yeah,
I
last month, I
approached
know.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
it came in at 3 o'clock.
I got it, just that you were talking about it, I wanted to ask.
We haven't looked at either, so not at all.
Right, and I would assume that since it's written to you folks, that we would do a written response to it
You would,
relative to
yes.
her comments. But yes, we can tie into that. We would not have, and obviously that would minimize the bank.
Disturbance on the
Yeah,
bank.
it would just be a new structure relative to that. I know one of the comments was in her letter, why are we taking pavement away? Well, first off, the pavement in the back is kind of broken up, and again, we're trying to meet the balance of impervious going this direction and impervious this way, and the problem was that existing conditions, the natural ground that's there, throws everything off. If that was paved, no problem. We'd be having all pavement out here. So what we've actually done is balance this so that we actually have about between 500 and 600 square feet less pavement on the site when we're finished than what we have right now. I know one of our concerns was the salt shed, and this is basically a fabric roof, so there's no roof drainage. Water comes off the roof and is down the side. It spills on the ground and it runs away.
I think she's more concerned that there's no infiltration on site, so turning that to gravel doesn't technically take away your runoff. And then,
Well, there's still, we found groundwater, there were tests done in the back, because we also did tests in the front. Groundwater was found 8 feet down in the front, however, it's miscellaneous fill and it's...
yeah, there's no infiltration. But then I think...
In the back, groundwater was found 2 feet down.
Right, so you're not going to infiltrate the water. So I think her issue is that's also the material storage area, and if you're moving material, you know, the last thing you want is gravel. I think she thought that pavement's just a better surface to be moving materials
Now, you
around.
can see, part of the problem is this grade falls off this direction. To put a drainage system here, I have no place to go with it. If you're saying I can't discharge, I cannot get it back to this location. There's no way I could ever pipe it back to here. I can't go underground to recharge or try anything. So this way, we thought it would be better to sheet flow it this direction.
Lisa's very creative. Before you write a response letter, I think you should probably give her a call and have a conversation.
No, that's easy. One of the other things we did is that island I mentioned is about 4 feet high, concrete blocks. What we've done here to limit any intrusions to the wetlands is right around the drizzy barriers that are out here right now. We're proposing putting the silt fence, again, the Filtrex socks with silt fence around the outside. Then taking these blocks and laying these blocks where the drizzy barriers are now. bringing the Jersey barriers in other words, restricting this more in this area, and that's shown on the layout plan pictorially here. Essentially, what we'll be doing is right around here, we'll be putting those blocks that are here. And number one, it's a way to use the blocks up, but it's also a way to put a barrier so the DPW, so Bruce won't go further. Just kidding.
So the blocks will be higher than what exists now? Is that the goal?
They're going to be, at this point, one row high, so they're substantially high, but then inside that will be the Jersey barrier. So there'll be 2 rows.
Oh, 2 rows, okay.
Essentially. It's also, like I said, otherwise, to demolition or take care of these blocks is,
Well, we have 1 row now,
you have, right,
1 row.
yeah. And again, we can talk with Lisa about what would make sense on that. We have, I know she mentioned operation and maintenance, we have that in the book. We have a long-term, we have short-term.
She wants them separated, so you have them as one document. The long-term O&M should be a document we can attach to the order of conditions and record, so it just needs to be a separate
Okay, we can do
document.
that.
That's all she's asking.
Okay, because now she mentioned the SWIP too. In this case, if the front of the site and back are both built, we exceed the 1 acre disturbance, therefore SWIP has to be prepared. Right now, if it's only the front of the site, it is not an acre in size, therefore a SWIP is not required. And again, that would be something the contractor would put together. I know she commented illicit sewer connection was not put in there, and in this case, that's something we'd do later, not do at this point, to submit that. I'm trying to figure what else she had.
So she doesn't, the storm scepter, she believes in the front of the site shouldn't take the roof drainage. She believes it adds more water, and again, you can discuss that with our expert on the storm scepter. She also had concerns about them being in line with the catch basins.
Yeah,
If storm scepters are the treatment that are required, they're designed to be the first in line, not after catch basins, because then what you get is overflow of material. The storm scepter is much better at collecting the coarse material, and so if it's first in line, it collects that material, and then that doesn't overflow into the rest of your drainage
We always have done it
system.
the other way around.
It's not the way that they spec it, though. That DEP requires they be done. They're required to be pre-treatment and first in line.
We'll review that.
You and Lisa.
Because the problem is, a storm scepter can't take water into it. You can't have a drain inlet. It has to have a catch basin.
Right,
to
that's
get
why I
water
think
to
she's
it.
saying she doesn't believe the roof drainage should
We
be
can talk about
connected. Yep.
Regarding, she's your consultant.
Let me make some general comments first. This project is really twofold. Number one, if you've been in the Public Works building, which I know you have, it is in absolute no condition for our staff to be in. It is a building that's roughly 45 years old, and the administration building that we're building in front is 7,100 square feet. It's a 2-story building, and it will connect to the old building by a, for lack of a better term, a small foyer entryway. We're going to turn what is the current Public Works into just storage space. Another problem we face is, over time, the engineering department is housed in a loft over the garage, so they're part of the garage. The second part of this is also to improve the site. We want to clean up and improve the site, and that's where the salt shed comes in. Again, that's a very old structure. The structure we are proposing is 80 by 100 feet, 30 feet high, 35 feet high, I'm sorry. So you see the picture there. So the trucks and the loaders will be self-contained in that, won't be open, won't be out in the open air, et cetera, and we hope to do site improvements all along. We did go before the planning board last night. We're scheduled to go back to the planning board on the 21st. One correction that I will make is that the parcel does not have adequate parking that meets planning board standards. It just doesn't. I can't create what I can't. My philosophy is, if I asked all the residents in North Andover whether that's a street or the DPW lot. 99% of them will tell me that's the DPW lot, but that's actually Wayne Street. Forget what you see on your screen that shows Wayne Street as the driveway to the high school. That's incorrect, but that's the way it's portrayed on the GIS system. But Wayne Street runs from Osgood Street all the way down to the other end of the property line. We use it for parking, storage, whatever. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. So it does not. We are reducing the number of parking spaces in front from 20 to 11, I believe. Right, John?
That's right.
From 20 to 11. So again, we're getting rid of some of the surface and putting grass and plantings, etc. And we're really restricted, as Dick said, we're restricted by the two wetlands on either side. We had to work carefully with the building, simply because we wanted to fit it within the 250-foot no-bills, but also have adequate space not only for today for public works and facilities management, but also for tomorrow. Those are my general comments.
Thank you. Are you all set right now?
I think so. It should be noted, the last plan in the very back of all the site is actually the landscape plan, which shows the improvements, the plantings that are proposed, that cover it.
So they are proposing more bank plantings. The bank is largely, well, toward the front of the site, it's more well vegetated than toward the rear of the site. And they're proposing to replant the bank.
Right. So the actual, and it was designed by a landscape architect, Dennis Dale. And what is shown here is the improvements that will be done between the building and, which is basically a mix of plantings, promoting wildlife as well as the ground cover. It's not just the lawn, not just grass.
And we've moved all the parking spaces away from that area.
Right. Everything is pushed closer to Wayne Street.
Any questions, Sean?
So Jen, is all the work outside of the 50?
No. So there's waiver requests for stormwater improvements. The new discharge, which could potentially be eliminated.
When we have parking that's within the 50.
So parking in driveways are allowed in the 50 if there's no alternative. It's clear this site's very limited, so I would say that's not a waivable requirement.
Is it already existing?
There is, yes.
Yes, it's already existing.
And we're actually going to reduce it.
Right.
Right.
So
And
that's not,
improvement
doesn't
will occur.
require a waiver. So currently, I think the only thing is the work at the new head wall at the front of the site, where they're going to tap a new core through it and discharge there. And then at the salt shed, where I was asking if they could connect into the new pipe and avoid the new outlet.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm sure. Just be a big manhole because it's going to go over a 36-inch pipe.
All other structures are outside? Really?
Barely outside.
Yep, barely outside.
Outside by the technical definition, yes, but
And
barely outside.
we've had lots of discussions except for the flagpole.
Including
Except for
underground.
the flagpole.
Including underground. The footing for this building does not project underground beyond the 50.
Right.
We're cutting the footing off.
And how's the site functioning these days?
This is going to be an improvement. So that's one of the things we discussed, and I mean, DPW is aware that site containment at this point is, there's one row, but the materials far extend over that. I guess if there's enough blocks, 2 heights of block for storage containment might be a good idea, at least in the most sensitive areas, maybe not throughout the site.
Again, Bruce is under the Public Works Director is under mandate to clean up the site.
Right.
And the back part of this will help them clean up the site.
So the only place currently where there's resource area incursion is the isolated wetland along Wayne Street. The riverfront area, there's overflow into the no disturb zone, but there's no actual resource area displacement. There's just material right up to the edge of bank. But along that edge of that, it's always been this way. It's nothing new. Along the edge of that isolated wetland that runs between Wayne Street and what's the next street over? Concord is in need of improvement. And we've talked about this for some time, so this will be a good thing.
Similar to the comment I made to the planning board last night, in a Shangri-La world, Public Works would be somewhere else.
Right.
But unfortunately, we're not in a Shangri-La world, but we don't have an unlimited budget. I tease our director all the time that if I could have Lexington's $30 million that they spent on their Public Works facility, I could build them that facility, but we don't.
Well, Jim, is there anything that can be done going forward to provide a barrier?
That's what they're discussing. So the blocks, the old salt shed is made of concrete block.
Yep.
And so what they're proposing is to provide, now I understand it to be a two-tier barrier, so it would be block and Jersey barrier?
Yes, correct.
So currently, they can come right up to the edge of the Jersey barrier and right over the edge of the Jersey barrier. And so what I was asking for is maybe, especially along the river, to have two height of block, just so we have a little more containment.
I'm sure there's enough block. We haven't counted them, but we ran them all the way around, and certainly on the backside, you're far enough away from the bank, you wouldn't have to even put the block there, and we could stack them too high on the corner.
I mean,
Wherever you'd like it.
even since I've been here, it's been improved. The Jersey barrier thing was new when we got here. I mean, the material was just out back. Now it is contained, but it tends to spill over.
And the material that's out there right now is sand and gravel.
Yeah.
It's
mulch.
rock, it's hard material, it's not bad stuff. You know what I mean? It's not contaminated material or anything. It's basically what you would use for, DPW use for building roads and such.
This proposed barrier, is it shown on the plan currently?
Yep. I mean,
And it's only in the back, correct?
It's actually on this
Between the
backside.
It's on the far rear of the property.
It wouldn't go all the way down here. We basically have some berm or some curbing in here, but it would not here, because again, we're letting this water sheet flow off.
I mean,
We can provide you with detail with it.
you can also just take a drive in sometime, and you'll see where the material is stored. It's a very limited area per the site. It's pretty much only, if you look at the photo that's up there.
Bottom left.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a little,
Yeah, right down here.
Yeah, it's in the back.
yeah, go out there and show.
If you, as far as where that block is,
Just relocated Jersey barriers.
currently the block is right here that I'm talking about. It goes right around this elevator. It was like they probably loaded trucks off of it at one time. It's up at tailgate height right here. And the plan is to take the blocks, first off, we're gonna bring the grade down to be able to put the salt shed there. And take the blocks up and use them as the barrier, because they are big blocks. I mean, they weigh a couple of tons apiece.
Barrier's far more in than that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you generally could show where that barrier
Sure. we
on
can
this would be.
I can,
Oh, yeah,
Just-
it would actually be right in here.
yeah, the edge
It's
of
not,
the
Yeah.
it's not going anywhere close to the BPW.
Yep.
That would be the idea, is we're using right now.
You see that large building on the screen, the large building there on the upper right?
Yes.
Almost parallel to that.
Yeah, so it's essentially right in here. But again, the flags are out there, they've all been refreshed, so it's readily seen where they are. And in this case, they'd be pulled in. Again, if you look at where the Jersey barriers are, that's the limit of where the block will be put. It's a matter of move the Jersey barriers away, put the blocks up.
And again, with the replacement of the salt shed, that entire middle area is all going to be cleaned up too.
It's
And
pretty clean now, it's graded and such. I mean,
In this exemplar that you showed us, is this 100 by 80?
That's 100 by 80, yes. That's the,
Big structure.
for lack of a better term, the prefab salt shed we're getting. It's 100 by 80, 35 feet high.
We just-
Again, the trucks-
Where is it?
Gloucester.
Yeah.
There's one in Gloucester.
That's the Gloucester photo right there.
I don't have any other questions at this point, John. Thanks.
I have a couple. The building that you're putting the addition on, is there any drainage changes to that roof, or is that, you just allow that to run up?
That just runs off right now, and that's gonna stay. We're not catching that at all.
Okay.
The only changes to the existing building is we're going to resurface the facade that's facing Osgood Street, because that'll be seen behind the new building to the side. We're not doing anything else to the existing building.
And the other thing is, it has here base bid work and then bid alternative work.
Yes.
No, it's not considered, filing this in one part?
For you,
Well,
for you, it's one.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
all of the facilities master plan projects here in town, this is, we're currently doing the town hall, which is project number 4. Public Works is going to be project number 5. They're all dollar-driven projects. So it all depends. I mean, when we bid the fire station project, 8 of the 9 bids came under estimate. We were able to do all the add-alts we wanted. This we have to consider as an add-alt, simply because we just don't know. The first estimate we got for the total work, we're right on the bubble. So by the time we go out to bid in another 3 months or so, the economy may change, so we have to do it as an add-alt. Depends on the price. Our intent is to find a way to get it done. But if I don't include it as an add-alt, then I've got to reject all the bids and go out to bid again and change the spec. So it's just a common sense way for management to approach it.
The stockpiles, the stockpiles that are in the back, the stone and the aluminum and the wrap, the crushed wrap and the stone, and that, is that area going to be eliminated, or are you going to put it somewhere else and it's going to stay where it is?
That's what we're containing with the explanation that Dick did on the blocks. That's going to be the first, outside, and then we're going to make jersey barriers in, and then still use some of the area inside.
Okay.
So we're away from it.
There's
It
not
doesn't
much
spill over.
material out there, and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not a huge amount of material.
It is.
I'm familiar with it.
What happens is, just let me explain. What happens is, if we have a project and we need to bring the material there, it stays there, and then it's either used or moved out. It doesn't stay there very long, but it does get pushed over, as Jen and I have had discussions about, and we're hoping that what this will do is prevent that from happening and give us a kind of like a containment area, a double-walled containment area.
We have an applicant doing that job. Jen mentioned it today at a meeting that we had about possibly making this site an MS4 compliant.
Compliant, yeah.
Because it's coming, and you know that, I don't have to tell you. I mean, now would be the time to do it, and I would think, if we're gonna, I'm asking that because I'm asking you because.
I don't think that it needs to be MS4 compliant. I think the issue is that any improvements that are made should comply with the MS4 permit, because you don't want to do things twice. So anything we do at this point should be compliant with that permit. And I think Lisa points that out in her.
So it's using the best management practices. And so,
Right.
yeah, not to-
So we don't want to do the containment and then find out we need to
We
do
can't.
something different or whatever. I haven't read the whole permit, so I don't know. But I think she's just pointing out, if you're going to make improvements, make sure you're making them compliant to that permit.
Especially the fact that if this does go as a 2-phase project, when you go to do phase 2, you might miss the deadline, at least if you're compliant and the project is approved based on the MS4 improvements.
But we want to make it compliant. And we've already done an awful lot on the site to get that ready. We have the plan that Jennifer and I talked about, that we want to make sure this is part of.
They have a SWIP, so anything they do to update, the operation and management plan for this particular project will have to update the SWIP for the whole site, which is part of the MS4 permit as well. But a different consultant does that, so if we do require that kind of update, we can just, I think Bruce and I talked, condition it, that we would require them to do it. But this would stand alone, and then we'd require them to.
Okay, and like I said, the area improvements that we've been talking about for a couple of years, would be nice if we could get together and kind of, like I said, it's a town project, and I'm all for it, so.
Yeah. Jennifer and I were talking about
Yeah.
that. We even went and developed a little list and some of these things that are.
Great.
One thing was taken care of last Friday.
And the other question is I'm looking at the plan, is you gonna have enough swing room on those, for that salt shed? It looks like it was about 80 feet right in front of the pumps.
Yes.
Yes, that was designed in. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, it was designed specifically
It's
to
designed for
avoid.
90-foot trailers to come in.
Right.
Okay.
And go
Well, like I said,
around.
I'm looking at it, it's a pretty busy plan, so I'm trying to gauge it myself.
Oh, yeah,
So,
it works.
okay. All right, that's it for now. I
It'd
have
be a
read.
tremendous improvement on this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I haven't looked at Lisa's comments yet, so that's all I have.
Actually, the salt shed is going to be moved further back from the pumps, so there's going to be more than enough room.
The current one is right here.
No, I know that,
The
but,
pumps are there, and this is moved way back so they can swing through, back in, and then go up.
okay, but, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I knew that, you know, the entrance is gonna be where, you know, where the pumps are. It's not gonna be from the other side there.
But we also had to provide access around this, so you get around, so we couldn't push it. But you can't push it because of the 50-foot no build. Maybe 10 feet is all you can move
No,
from its location.
I'm just throwing the questions out there. Okay, I'm all set for now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see this project go forward. I mean, it's to echo Ray's comments, it's overdue. So I'm very happy and very supportive of what you're doing here. Also supportive of your efforts to, orient the project properly. And I agree with your approach of minimizing impact to the riparian zones, whenever possible, and keeping all building outside the 50-foot no build zone as part of our bylaw. All good stuff. I think it's, it's obviously a redevelopment project, and just having a chance to skim Lisa Eggleston's letter this afternoon. We just got it like hours ago, literally. But it seemed like there were some points that had to do with improving stormwater situations, through the design and through the project to the greatest extent practicable. So that's kind of a standard thing that we hold all our applicants to. In terms of redevelopment projects, we would expect no less from the DPW on this. And I guess my final comment has to do with the stockpiles of aggregate and sand in the rear of the site. We've dealt with 2 other yards in town. One of them actually is proposed and I think is moving forward at this point. Landscaping materials contained in similar ways as what you're proposing. I think we've got a track record on what we're looking for on that, and it's not mulch, it's not loam, it's sandy and aggregate material, so that is better. But I think some direction on what we've required in the very recent past is probably worth reviewing as part of your final design development.
Sure.
So,
Thank you.
that's all.
Doug?
No, I have no comments at this time.
Okay, so we need to continue.
Unless there's any abutter, I don't know if there's any abutters present.
Is there
who
any
wanna
butters
comment.
here for the DPW project?
All right.
We anticipated coming back.
Move to continue.
So 6:22 is the next meeting.
6:22.
So we-
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is part of the record.
Our very own copy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next one is 242-1680, 17 Mass Ave, Merrimack Road.
Keep on. So, you asked, Mayor McOil for some subsequent information, which I supplied to you, I think, last week. One was a letter. The next was some photos kind of showing the drainage on the site. We talked a lot about grading last time. Those were the photos that were submitted. And then I'll pull up the plan. I think for those of you who were able to review the plan, it had a lot more elevation information on it at this point. It also enlarged the spill containment area, which you had asked for. And with that, I think and we got a civil engineering stamp, which was Joe's request from last meeting, even though he couldn't be here tonight. So, on to you.
Well, my name is Bob Coluccio, Web Engineering Associates, representing Merrimack Valley Oil. The president who was at the last meeting took ill and was not able to. President of Merrimack Valley Oil, not the president.
I said, I missed the last meeting. What was there?
Yeah, I thought I'd bring my gun to bring the president. I think I see one new face, and basically what the background of the project is that federal and state regulations require that all single-walled steel underground storage tanks be removed by 2017. So that was the impetus of this project. And when they hired me to design the system for them, I noticed that they didn't have a very good spill containment system. So I sort of lumped that onto the improvements I was going to make on the project. And as was alluded to, one of the board members asked that we increase the size of the wall. So right now, conservatively, we can contain 5,700 gallons, and that's with some water accumulation. The reality is the number is probably more like 15,000 gallons when I figured out the different contours, what would be contained. The practice of Merrimack Valley Oil, and in the submittal that I gave after last meeting, was I developed their oil spill prevention plan. And in that, I described the practices and procedures that will facilitate how this is operated. And if there's any significant water in there, they'll have to drain the water before they can do any kind of oil truck loading or any kind of handling of oil. So that's a procedure built right in. Even if there is a little bit of accumulated water there, like I said, the size of a truck is 2,800 gallons, and it's not likely to even lose that content. You know, they're more at risk of losing that content driving down the highway than they are parked at the loading rack. They're more likely to lose maybe 250 to 500 gallons, and that would be just a result of the pumping activity. So with those valves closed whenever they're operating, and with the stormwater drained, there's a lot of storage there. And a part of it is also they can't store snow there because that would change everything, you know, change the whole grading dynamics of the containment system. It's it will look better when it's done. It'll look safer, and I don't know if there's, that's basically what I have.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
I spoke to Jen today about the paving. And that she shot you off an email.
Yes.
It said that on the plan that it was going to be, another plan, patching?
Yeah.
Was it supposed to be patching or repair as needed, or?
To repair broken asphalt is what it says.
So that's kind of a loose term.
Well, what it was that in the photograph that she displayed at the last meeting, it just so happened it had just rained, and so there was you could see that some of the water was trapped in some of the cracks, and someone on the board just asked if we were going to repair that, and that was really my intention. If you look at the photograph, you can see that that was we might be talking 100 square feet, no more than 200 square feet in that area. Mm-hmm. There is some broken asphalt on 17 Mass Ave, but that's totally out of the area where we're at the where it goes to where the storage area is.
My main concern is your spill area containment where the swale was, where you can see the water actually going through this picture here?
Yeah, that was,
So-
I submitted that.
Yeah, so I was wondering if in this area, if the pavement is deteriorating, the water's gonna leach in through the cracks.
It's not, if it is, it is not that bad. The area nearer probably to the river, the area where I pointed was where there was some areas where it was spalled or cracked, and we'll repair that. And, we're gonna have a contractor with a unit, with unit prices, and we're going to, direct him to what areas to patch.
So there's no plan at this time to resurface that area?
No, it really doesn't need it. It just needs some areas that might need to be, cut up. They're going to be doing some cutting anyway to put in the tanks. And also, we're improving the truck mat where the truck parks now to fuel. We're pitching that and making it bigger. All of the oil handling activities will happen on concrete.
Yeah, it is. It is. You can see because you get the swale
That was
there.
my,
That's right in front.
widening of
Swale there, that's right in
the wall and the
Mhm.
pavement where it's
I
gonna.
also added positive limiting barriers around the tank pad where they fill the tanks and where their diesel dispenser is. So although those things are only really effective when it's not raining out, but we still have the ultimate containment system. It will provide something.
Okay, and we're gonna have to have some significant signage on that wall area with it, so they know not to push snow, pile
Oh,
snow.
no snow stockpiling signs?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, in that area,
Mhm.
I would say probably push the snow off to this side. That would be one of the.
We have those. So.
But at the, we're gonna have a pre-construction meeting at some point. I wanna be there to observe the pavement, because that's what I do for a living. So I wanna make sure that when, we approve it and then 6 months down the road, that's gonna fracture and cause us an issue. So that would be my only concern, because I'm just worried about if there is a spill, oil leaching into never making the containment area, just
Mhm.
leaching into, because the hot top is fractured.
Good point.
That's all I have. Chad?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it seems like, and reviewing the document, that most of our concerns from last time are definitely addressed. But one thing I am unclear on, there's a photo of the fractured asphalt, in that section leading to the swale that drains down toward the river. Is that going to be repaired or not?
Yeah,
That's the repair.
Oh, okay.
These are the drawings that are going to go to the contractor for bids, so,
Yeah, the question is, what type of repair are you going to make? Full depth reconstruction or
excuse me?
overlaying it or what?
Oh, no, we'll cut it out, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't overlay it, that would, I understand that not to be the proper means of repairing concrete. They will be out there with saw cutting, removing and replacing nice, neat lines.
I'm all set.
I'm all set.
Like I said, if they're gonna saw cut in the area that's near the discharge of the bridge or the gate, the wall, I mean, it might be a good idea to saw cut that area so you have a nice defined swell. I mean, it might be a thought, but I mean, I haven't been by the site, so it might be something to think about.
Well, if you come to the pre-construction meeting, we can kind of mark it out.
Yep. All right, very good. Any more questions? Any closed here?
No, I'm good.
Close.
I don't think,
Issue.
did DEP issue comments? I can't recall on this
I haven't
one.
received anything.
No. I just meant, was it still under review or not? No, I think they had no comments on this one, I'm pretty sure. Okay, yep, just thinking out loud, sorry.
I move that we close 242-1680 and issue a decision within 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't even, because there was no butters here last time, but I guess we, they're not here this time. Next one is 242-1679 Great Pond Road, Drill Pump Station.
So on this one of the things we had asked for, and it's easy for me to review because I went out there and looked at the plants, is we asked for a revegetation of the 25-foot no disturb zone. So the last sheet of the plan is doesn't show up great on here, I have to say. See if that does us any better. But they did do a nice planting plan. I went out and looked at what was out there and suggested some plants to them, so oh, that actually looks a lot better. So there's the 25-foot no disturb zone. There are a lot of trees on the bank, don't get me wrong, and they don't propose to remove all of them. So there'll be a good canopy cover, so most of what I gave to them were, you can see the list down here, is shrub plantings. High bush blueberry, northern arrowwood, bayberry, black chokeberry, and inkberry. So it's pretty much all shrubs, a good number of them, and all along the 25-foot no disturb zone. So the next piece, which is the bigger issue, and you had asked for, was about whether or not there are tanks, fuel storage tanks on the site. Still not confirmed, but I think, and they'll explain further, is that that you've been given a protocol that if there were and they needed to be removed, how that would be done. So turn it over to you.
Thank you, guys. My name is Nate Little, project engineer with Woodard & Curran, and Kyle Gerlach, an engineer with Woodard & Curran as well. I think we met Kyle and our coworker Rob Little at the last meeting on May 25th. So just wanted to follow up. I think the items Jennifer touched on, obviously, was the plantings within the 25-foot no disturb zone. Or no disturb zone. So we provided plantings within the limit of work and the border between the limit of work and the no disturb zone. We received the DEP filing, and there were no comments on that on the DEP website. And lastly, as Jennifer said, was the underground storage tanks. So since the last meeting, we've pulled together this memo and a couple specifications for dealing with those tanks if found. I think you guys are aware of the background, but basically the old site plans that were given to us indicated that there's the potential of 2 storage tanks, one to the north side of the station and one to the west side of the station. But we don't have any historic documentation as to whether or not those were removed. We had one very old plan that wasn't dated that had 2 tanks on the plan, and then the plan from the 80s that included the upgrades for the ozone chamber. That plan set only showed 1 tank on the northern side, so there's a possibility that one on the western side was already removed. As I said, as far as we know now, that the town doesn't have any records about these tanks. We have contacted the fire department. Spoke with them this morning, actually, and they were going to look into whether or not they had any records of those tanks and if they were removed. So waiting to hear back from them on that. Secondly, we're in discussions with Bruce and the DPW right now to do some test pits out on site to provide some more information as to whether or not these storage tanks do exist, the size of those, and whether or not there's potentially any contaminated soils around those tanks. So as I said, we're in discussion with them right now, trying to come up with a game plan and a schedule when we can get out there and test pit those. Those test pits would be performed under the direction of a qualified environmental professional under the direction of a licensed site professional, an LSP for that work, which we have several of in our office in Andover. The soils during that test pitting, the soils will be screened, inspected and screened, and sampled for headspace, and some laboratory analysis done in accordance with DEP protocols and the mass contingency plan. They'll be evaluated for the presence of any light non-aqueous phase liquid or oils or hazardous materials. And as I said, we're coordinating this with DPW. And the outcome of that investigation is going to impact how we go into, how we finish up the design and go into bid. Right now, not knowing, we've provided 2 bid alternates, one of them being the removal and disposal of storage tanks themselves, and the other being the removal, transport, and disposal of any potential contaminated soils. Included in the memo was a specification for the removal and disposal of the storage tanks. And I brought to the meeting today, we brought to the meeting and handed out a specification for removal, disposal of contaminated soils and potentially any contaminated water that's encountered in those excavations.
No questions.
We don't even know if these tanks have liquid in them, if they do exist. I mean, that could change the parameters of the whole project.
Exactly, which is why we want to do this investigation ahead of time.
We guesstimate we're talking maybe probably heating oil.
Yeah, that's that would be
One of them.
our guess. Yeah.
Then it's 2 tanks, right?
That's what was in the old plans. I can't say what would be in the other tank. I'm not sure at
Because
this time.
it's hard for us to approve something, I think, till we know it's there.
So basically what they've done is provided the spec that, as if it were. So we have that. And what I was thinking is we'd condition it, given that it's sort of a generic spec, that if the tanks are found, that, the generic spec would be followed, but more information may be required if we felt that there was a need for more information.
Because this plan doesn't say anything about having stuff in the tanks.
It does talk about product within the tank.
It does, in the
That's
UST one, so one's
Yep.
for the contaminated soils and the other is for the tanks themselves.
That's what I was doing before the meeting. Okay.
I think you have the one for just the one that was handed out tonight.
Yep. Item, in the specification 026500, paragraph 3.04, C and D talk about removing any potential sludge or liquid from those tanks.
Okay. All right. That's it. All right, then I'm fine then. The tank cleaning. All right.
Well, I don't think, this should hold up the demolition of the building, and, Bruce said these are separate from the actual structure and all the things that are under it, so it's not like it's something we can ignore, but it's definitely not something that needs to hold up the...
Like I said, we don't even know where the tanks are.
Well-
think where they're you think you know where they're located. I mean,
Based on old plans.
No, there's an old plan of where they are, but I think the trending thought is that they're not even there.
okay, but I'm just saying, if they're gonna tear down the building, I want to, be nice to know where those tanks are, because you're disturbing the soil, and those tanks are sitting there, and I'm sure they're not in the best condition in the world.
Mhm.
So any site disturbance at all could potentially rupture those tanks.
Yeah, the goal would be, to find out information about these tanks ahead of time. And that's the intent. The work that's going to occur on site shouldn't be disturbing the soil. We're going to be disturbing the ground cover, obviously, removing some of the trees and shrubs in that area, and demoing the station itself, the structure of the station. And they'll be removing the foundation down to about a foot below grade. So the soil will be disturbed slightly with that activity in the vicinity of those tanks.
Right.
Not knowing how deep the tanks are or exactly where they're located.
Exactly. That's what makes to me, if I was gonna do the job, the first thing I would do is take the tanks out.
Mhm.
Just to be safe, because, they're digging in areas and there could be potentially heating oil in it.
Yep.
And the lake is there.
Yep.
So,
No, exactly. And the goal and the contingency built in here is that we're gonna identify whether or not those exist ahead of time.
well, hopefully,
And have these, have these backup as
Condition sequence,
specifications.
right? We can condition the sequence.
okay. All right, that's my other question. Jeff?
Really, to continue that vein, when, you said you're working with Bruce on, doing some borings or test pits or something to, identify location and existence of any underground tanks. When do you plan to do that?
We've had discussions with them beginning of this week, with the short week last week and coordination. We had talked to them briefly about it. There's been more discussion at the beginning of this week. From currently our scope, our engineering services scope doesn't include this portion of work, so we've been talking to him about contracting our services to assist in that work, and so we'll be coordinating scheduling.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
We'll be coordinating scheduling with that discussion. I know the project manager discussed that with him today, and Bruce was adamant about having that done and moving it forward quickly. I know that his plan for the project, as far as scheduling goes, was to try to look into getting this project out to bid sometime in the fall, staying away from the summer. Not the investigation of the storage tanks, but the actual demo project. He was looking to do that in the fall, outside of the kayak season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've done a lot, and I think you've, provided us a lot of certainty of what would happen if the tanks are there, but we don't know if the tanks are there, and so I guess I'm kind of, we have that, but we don't have certainty on what the project is because we don't know what whether the tanks are there and whether there's any contamination plumes around it.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, your approach on USTs is what we see in situations like this. So I don't have any problem with what you guys have proposed. I was kind of hoping you'd say, well, we've got a backhoe going out there tomorrow to see what's going on, and because what we do sometimes is to if there's just something, if there's a piece of information dangling out there, we might continue tonight, but close next meeting with the decision, approved the same night, so you don't lose any time at all.
I don't think they're going to know by next meeting. I think, to Sean's point, I think we need to condition the timeline.
The sequence.
We require them to know before they demo if they're there or not, and then you have the contingency, and we can require more information from that. But from what I spoke to Bruce today, and I don't think they'll know in 2 weeks whether they're there or not.
I know we're not in the drafting of the decision phase, but what kind of language do you envision using that they?
Just simply that, I mean, we have the contingencies, so both of the documents for the tank removal and if there were hazardous soils would be referenced, and those would be the procedures that they followed if they found them.
But what about the finding phase? Like, would you demand them to do borings?
We have our pre-construction conditions, and one of the pre-construction conditions would be that they need to know whether those tanks are there or not.
Well, it should be prior to going out to bids. The determination of whether or not the tanks exist.
We allow
should be made.
them to do testing for, I mean, it's always been the commission's policy that outside of 50 feet, are the tanks outside of 50, or they're in the 25? But it's generally flat out there, so they could install some erosion control, and testing for testing purposes is exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act, and we've always allowed it for soil test pits if they were out of 50 feet. But in this case, if they're in that open area and they install erosion control, the site's as flat as a pancake. There's no issues with doing some testing.
Okay, so it would be test pits is what you're doing.
Well, or whatever. I mean, the borings is even less invasive than test pits, so whatever they propose to do.
Does the testing alone, does it penetrate the tank sometimes?
I wouldn't think so.
No,
They
we'd
would
want to use,
determine.
yeah, want to be as conservative as possible when we do the test
Right.
fitting.
They'd
I'm
be
not sure
looking
if
for
the town-
soils first to see if there's any contamination.
We haven't talked to Bruce exactly what equipment they'd be using, but I don't know if the town has a Vector truck. I would recommend the use of a Vector truck to begin with.
Okay.
I
With
would
this,
recommend using the backhoe.
Oh,
yeah.
boy, I guess there was a tank there, right? We found it.
You found it.
It's
So
been compromised.
So it sounds like we could close this project, or we could close this an issue with the assumption that there are tanks and they'll be treated as
According to those.
proposed.
I think that's what they would like us to do, and then I think with the backup of
Yeah.
prior to just knowing one way or the other,
Yep.
whether they're there or not,
Yeah, the condition should be prior to any bidding on the project.
prior to
that
bidding, okay.
That there be a determination of whether or not the tanks exist.
I think Bruce would want that too. He wants to know
That's a little different ballgame.
how could you
Right.
bid it without knowing?
It
Well,
seems
he
like
could
a
bid it
no-brainer.
as two separate projects.
Yeah, you could.
Pipe job,
Probably would.
ledge clause.
I mean, we're not going to close it out until all the work is done, but they could certainly do the building demo and all that work, and then if they, and wait and finish off with the tank removal.
Then I'm more lenient if it wasn't the lake. You know, anywhere else.
Well, I mean,
I'd be
if-
more creative, but I mean, I'm just concerned about the lake.
I don't think we have to, I mean, this is the water department that is
Right.
the applicant on this, so there's nobody more
No, but-
concerned than,
No, but that's why I'm asking the questions. I'm
Right.
just, you know, just to be more thorough is important, but I'm having more questions. But we can't continue if we're going to condition, so we need a motion to,
no, we can close if we're going to
Close.
condition. I would say, I'm not-
yeah.
All set up?
Yeah.
I'm all set.
I move that we close 242-1679, 1920 Great Pond Road, and issue a decision within 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all.
this is another meeting of like multiple extra pages of notes.
Okay, next one is bill number 2420, Boston Street, Edgewood.
So they have requested to continue, we kind of went back and forth today, but I did review the wetland line, and it is largely accurate, but there were a few changes, including the changes to the perimeters, defined perimeter of a vernal pool out there. So they're just going to update the plans and come once, so they don't have to do it twice.
Works for me.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. COC request for,
So we're still working on that drip trench, so continue that too.
so, what's June what?
22nd.
Well, that's late, well, it's a while.
Well, today's the 8th, so 2 weeks.
242-1603 COC request to continue to June 22nd.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Severy Valley Tower, and also continuing.
Okay, continuing also?
So moved.
Brush not removed.
Till the
Second.
next meeting, right?
Yeah.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous. PCOC request for 242-1382.
So this is the equestrian shop, and you guys would remember better than better than me, because I was not here when you permitted
The strip mall.
the strip mall down there. But part of the project was on the equestrian shop, part of the pavement. We've since discovered there's a wetland across 114, but when the project was originally filed, that wetland wasn't on the plans. So none of that work was proposed in jurisdiction at the equestrian shop. So I would just say, as far as we're concerned, the parking improvements that were made on the equestrian shop, which is being sold or is sold, don't affect a certificate of compliance for the strip mall, which still has yet to be gotten. So this can be
Stonewall Plaza.
yeah, about that tank and the 25-foot no disturb. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. This can get a PCOC from that
Okay.
project.
Any questions?
Nope. No question.
Motion?
Move that we issue the PCOC for 242-1382.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is
I have
242.
a question, Jen.
Yep.
We're looking to close next week on the property. How quickly does that get recorded?
So we produce it probably tomorrow, and then you would pick it up and record it. So if
Okay.
you want, I'll have Donna just keep it available at the desk if you want to come get it.
Yeah, come by in the afternoon.
Yep,
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
sure.
Next one is 242-1579, extension request for 1193 Waypoint Road.
So this is the Brooks Solar. They haven't started it. I don't know if they'll be able to do it within the 2 one-year extensions that they'll get, but we can give them a shot at it. So the issue for it's supposed to come in per the bylaw 30 days before, and I think it came in like 27, but I think that should hold up the process. So I would recommend giving them a 1-year extension.
Any questions? Motion?
Move that we issue the 1-year extension for 242-1579.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one
Yep.
is, thank you.
Thank you.
242-1261, enforcement order, Couture and Layden Street.
So we did finally get that stamped as-built plan. So I recommend first releasing the enforcement order, which allowed them to do the work to get to this as-built condition. So I guess that's the first motion.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And then the second would be to grant the full and final COC on 1261.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And that, had we actually started at 7 when we were supposed to, we would have been at 8:30, but, which is I think what I told you for a time, but sorry for the,
This is the enforcement order for 146/148.
so this is Mr. Smith's attorney, who we met with earlier this week, and I asked him to come tonight to try to resolve the fines and enforcement issue that resulted from the work that was done to repair the pipes. The pipes have been repaired. I doubt it's a final repair or the final end of this project. But that said, there's a stockpile of soil and some debris left on the site, which you had issued an enforcement order to get cleaned up. It didn't get cleaned up. Part of that was because the project wasn't finished, and I think Mr. Smith didn't want to close back the hole if people wanted to see the work, and there were some mitigating circumstances there.
What we had was a meeting, it was a pseudo-settlement meeting, but more of a meeting of engineers. One of the reasons why Mr. Smith left the pit open and just covered it with the boards was actually left by Sutton Pond last year, was to make sure that it was available for Sutton Pond's engineer to inspect both inside the pump station as well as the pipe that he had replaced and repaired that was leaking under the ground. So at this point, the engineer came and inspected yesterday. So I would imagine right now, we're probably going to bury what there is right now. And so the soil won't be an issue.
So by the end of this week, you think? Like if I were to check on Monday next week, would it be done?
I would assume so. I'll talk to him about it and then give you a call. But,
Well, the commission's going to want a deadline, so if you want to give us a date by which you think you can get it
I
done.
would be more comfortable a week from Friday.
The soil hasn't migrated anywhere.
So clean up the site within, we'll say 14 days, that will give them 2 weeks.
What exactly is cleaning up the site other than the
There's a
soil?
bunch of debris there as well, which he should clean up. He did work and then sort of left, there's pits open and stuff all around. There's wood, there's,
Right, the wood was actually left from Sutton Pond last year.
it's mostly the migrating soils. There's a big stockpile of soil where they excavated out the pipe and stuck it on the bank. It's in riverfront. It's within 50 or so feet of the bank. It hasn't migrated anywhere. We haven't had any really significant rain, so it is pretty much still sitting in the immediate area of the work.
But I haven't been out there, so but 14 days would give them plenty of time to do it,
I would
right?
say you'd sort of be extending Right now, the fines sit at $2,100. So I would hope it was in, his best interest to just get it done, and when it's done, the commission can discuss what they think needs to be done about the fines, but it would save us all from probably going to court over the matter, too.
Well, I will talk to him about basically covering the pit right now, filling in the pit with the soil that he removed and removing the debris.
Right, so.
Within 14 days.
So
Yeah.
within 14 days.
Well, that's even more time than I asked for.
Right.
Well, we try to work with everybody, trust us. The first time you guys came, it was, check your guns at the door. We don't like to operate that way. So, I think 14 days is plenty. And so we'll suspend the fines for the 14 days, and then we'll go from there.
And then when the work is done, if he wants to request some, rebate of those fines, the commission will often consider those requests.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as the applicant is cooperative and is gonna effort. Now, if he gives you a hard time about picking up some litter that's there, they're saying, I didn't put it there, somebody else put it there,
Well,
then, we don't want to get into petty arguments.
that is not,
No, we're not negotiating.
I mean, I don't think that's a big deal with respect to what is there right now. The bigger deal will be coming down to how and when a new pump station is going to be built. And I think that's a much different issue. But that's something the commission will be involved in, because that's basically where the talks went yesterday.
So everyone's aware, and we had talks with lawyers for both sides, the town's lawyer and my boss, and it seemed that there was at least some kind of, everybody understood the proposal. I wouldn't say everybody agreed with it 100%, or who was going to fund costs. Those things probably still need to be worked out.
That doesn't, that's.
But what the bigger thing is, everybody understands that any work going forward needs to be permitted. Nothing can be done.
Well, and that has actually been our position all along. I mean, and the commission really, historically, and this is something that we had discussed with your boss, and it's really not part of the issue right now with the commission, but the actual pressurized pump system has never been permitted. We could not find a permit. Director Kafori agreed with us last year that there was no permit. Whatever goes in there now, at least from our camp, and I believe from the town's camp, has to be permitted 100%. That means studies, that means location has to be inspected, the whole 9 yards. We've always held that position. What we're hoping to do is get a consensus at least to the type of system that should go in. But then again, that is down the road. Our engineer is presently putting forth, based on an agreement on how to at least see where we're going to go, he's going to put in 2 proposals from a cost and a scope perspective. And again, that's just a ballpark because we don't know what's underground. Okay, but what we'd prefer to put in is a modern system that you basically dig a hole, put it in, connect the sewer system, and it's done. There's no issue of heat, so there's not going to be an issue with any freezing. But again, one of the things that Sutton Pond has suggested, and this is something that we have to probably bring back to the town's attorney to help us with Sutton Pond, is whether or not even reconstructing the system that presently exists is a viable option, which from an engineering standpoint, I don't see from a cost perspective standpoint. I mean,
I think
right.
Tonight it's just about stopping the fines. So I think what the commission's done is sort of reissued the enforcement order to give you 14 more days now that this is done, during which period no fines will be issued, and you get it done, and we're starting from scratch when we get to the new system.
Okay.
The other question I have is, and John brought it up, Are we still involved in the lawsuit? Is that-
We are not. We're not part of the lawsuit.
Okay.
Is the town part of
The
the
town
lawsuit?
is.
The town is
So
part of the
The
lawsuit.
building inspector, the health director, and,
They're who are no longer there, and Director Kafori.
right, are involved in the lawsuit directly.
Yeah.
Our original enforcement order and the fines are being appealed.
Yeah.
It's being appealed where?
Superior Court.
Right, so that was done by lawsuit.
Correct. But that's not particularly against any member of the commission. That's an appeal of the enforcement order.
Right, but that's what I sent you.
Oh, yeah, ages ago.
That
Yeah,
captioned
back in-
it,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
So,
we can address that
So
issue.
I guess the motion would be to amend the enforcement order to give Mr. Smith 14 days to clean up the soil stockpile.
Sure.
And
So what we're
return
doing
the
tonight
area
is-
to a.
Is it A-OK?
That's it, and in 2 weeks,
Yeah,
we'll
good to go.
discuss the rest of it.
Well, maybe, you know,
Maybe.
who knows what the court action's going.
Exactly. Okay,
Well, we've often negotiated fines, just for your benefit and for yours, outside of the court system. We can go to the court system and negotiate them there, just tends to cost more money. But we can negotiate, we've often, I know both when Jack was chair and when Lou's been chair, that we've negotiated fines outside of that arena to avoid going to court, but that's up
I
to you.
showed up
and-
tonight basically as a courtesy to my client, just to pull some stress off of it, as well as make sure that, as you said, the guns were checked at the door, if you will. The idea is to remove the emotion and just try to move forward in getting a resolution that is more of an annoyance and a big issue for both the town as well as for us. And really, you know, I see that as a step forward of what we're doing tonight.
Right.
excellent.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So motion would be to reissue the enforcement order stating the work will be done in 14 days.
And
Without fines.
without fines.
Suspended fines.
Okay, thank you. Well said, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a,
Second?
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next unanimous.
So I put the greenbelt restriction on the agenda because Vanessa Johnson from Essex County Greenbelt, the town did vote to purchase the conservation restriction on the Leonard Farm. The town and Greenbelt would co-hold the restriction, which is often a really great thing for us because Greenbelt does baseline monitoring reports. They assist with the monitoring. They do a lot of the legwork that really takes the burden off of the Conservation Department to do all those sorts of things because you guys will be co-holders of the restriction. I do encourage, she's going to come next meeting to answer any questions and concerns. I did read it, and the restriction is not standard because there are ongoing agricultural activities on the farm. And, you know, one of the things I had never seen, which this is a very large parcel, is the ability to subdivide the restriction. Subdivision would just be because it's a large parcel of land, and if more than one person wanted to own it, that's possible. The restriction stays in place regardless of the multiple owners. But there's some things in there that are less than standard, so if you want to take a read and you have any questions for when she's here next time, that would be great.
Is there an excluded area, or what? Oh,
The
that's right.
excluded area is for homes at
It's
the
for the
front, so
homes,
they
right.
still can develop a portion of the property. The
Now I
restricted
remember.
portion is the back, the trails in the back,
Okay.
all those sorts of things.
All right.
So, good bedside reading.
Yeah, I'll have some comments for you. I haven't had a chance to
Okay.
look at it, but I will.
Thank you.
And you didn't give us a hot paper.
I emailed it, but if you'd
Okay.
like a paper copy,
No, that's fine.
I
I'll
think
just-
Donna may have given you some, actually.
No, we didn't get one.
No, that's it right
No,
there.
no, I'm talking about Lisa's comments on the,
Oh, you emailed it to her.
yeah.
Oh, and she didn't, I thought she didn't print them?
No.
No,
Okay,
that's okay.
you can have mine.
No,
I can
okay.
print another
I'll
copy.
get it online.
Yeah, there's not many pages in it.
Right.
It's like 5. It's a good letter.
Yeah, it is.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, now don't let me forget it. All right, we're done.